Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Gray Board Gamer here with a playthrough of Flashpoint Fire Rescue, a cooperative game by Kevin Lansing. In order to win, the players must rescue the victims trapped inside a building before the fire gets out of control, or the building collapses. In the rulebook, there's two versions of the game. There's a family version and an experienced version. I'll be playing the experienced version of the game. The board is also double-sided, and I'm playing with the more difficult side where there's only two entrances into the building. I'll be doing this as a 4-player game. You can see the 4 firefighters there, red, yellow, white, and green. I'll go ahead and go through the experienced game setup in the rulebook. We've already chosen which side of the board we're going to play. So next we're going to place the door markers with the closed side up on all the doorways. And that would be for the interior doors. The exterior doors do not get a closed door token. I'll be playing this at the recruit level. There's recruit, veteran, and heroic, which means there will be 3 initial explosions and 3 areas with hazmat. We'll determine where the first explosion is by rolling the black 8-sided die that comes with the game. And that result will put our first explosion at 4-4. What does that mean? Let me explain. You can see on the left and right sides of the board, you'll see icons depicting a 6-sided die, 1 through 6, starting at the top going down to 6 at the bottom. And at the top and bottom edges of the board, you'll see black triangles, which represent the number on the 8-sided die. Now what they mean by 4-4 is we always read the red die number first. I know we didn't roll a red die, but the rulebook tells you just to roll the black 8-sided die, and then they give you a chart to look at in the rulebook. And by rolling a 7, it calls out a red 4 and a black 4. So we look at the board and we see where the red 4 is, and then we go from left to right until we get to the black 4 on the grid that is laid out for the board, which would be for this location right here. Now that marker I just put down is not part of this game. I just use it because it's easier for me to keep track of things. That location will be where our first explosion occurs. And when an explosion occurs, you spread fire or damage to each direction orthogonally. And I always do it the same way so I don't get confused. I start at the top and then I go to the right, to the bottom, and then to the left. And in this case, just above this token is a wall, which means you're not going to put fire on the wall, but you're going to put a damage marker on the wall. So first I'll put down the initial fire token where my acrylic marker is, and then damage the wall with 1 token. The black cubes signify how much damage a wall has on it. In this case, it has 1. If a wall ever has 2, that means there's a hole in that wall which fire and personnel can pass through. Now the fire will go to the right of where the explosion occurs, and since it's an open space, we'll put a fire token there. The wall below it will get damage, and the open space to the left will get a fire token also. Our second explosion will come from rolling both dice this time. And we have a 3-5. So we'll follow the red 3 over to the right until we get to the black 5, and that will be our location for our second explosion. And like before, we'll have an explosion that radiates out in every orthogonal direction. In this case, we're going to run into 2 doors, one to the right and one below. Whenever an explosion encounters a closed door, the door gets blown off, and then that door is just open for the rest of the game. And for the third explosion, the rules say to flip the black die that you rolled previously, in this case it's on a 5, to the opposite side, keep that number, and then re-roll the red die. The result was a red 2 and a black 2, and we'll put our third explosion at that location. So it looks like the bottom and right side of our structure doesn't have any fire yet, so it's mostly concentrated in the middle and in that upper left quadrant, which I guess is kind of lucky for us because on the left side of the building there's an entrance so we can get in there pretty quick and start fighting this fire and looking for victims. Now that our 3 initial explosions are resolved, we'll place our hazmat markers. In this case, there'll be 3 of them at this difficulty level. And I'll roll the dice, both of them, 3 times, and place a hazmat marker in each of those locations according to the grid. If at any time the placement of a hazmat marker is in a space that is already on fire, I'll just re-roll the dice. Our 3 hazmat markers are on the board. We have one at 5-3 there in the kitchen, one at 6-5 in one of the bedrooms, and the last one is at 3-6 in what appears to be the master bedroom. So I don't know why a couple of bedrooms have hazardous material in them, but it's not my house. Next, we'll create the pool of points of interest markers. You can see them off to the right side of the screen, those circular blue tokens with question marks on them. I have removed 2 victims and 1 false alarm, which is a blank one, as instructed in the rule book, which means there's going to be 10 victims and 5 false alarms for a total of 15 tokens there. We're going to roll the dice 3 times to place our first 3 POI, point of interest markers, but that's easier to say, on the board. And with the same rules, if the target space we roll has fire in it already, we will roll again. All 3 of our POI markers are in place. We got really lucky. We rolled a 3-1, so there's one right by the door. So I guess they almost made it out, but the smoke got to them and they're unconscious right there. Or it could just be a false alarm. And then the other 2 are located way at the back of the house in the master bedroom, where that hazmat is at. So who knows what's going on in this house. Got hazmat in the bedrooms, a couple of people passed out in there. But again, it's not my house. I'm just here to save people. Next, each player would get a specialist card here in the experience game. I'm going to take the stack and just shuffle them face down and draw 4 to give me 4 random specialists to start the game. I ended up drawing the imaging technician, the generalist, the fire captain, and the hazmat technician. In the experience game, you can swap specialist cards out by going to the fire truck and doing a crew change. So you're not limited to just these 4. I can bring the other ones in and swap them out to give the firefighters a break and bring a new crew member in. We'll go over that when it occurs in the game. With each of the initial explosions, I should have placed a hotspot marker, and I'll do that now. Hotspot markers are these little cardboard tokens that I'm dropping. Those hotspot markers go at the source of the explosion, not at each bit that radiates out from the explosion, just the point of the explosion. So there's 3 of them out there on the board right now. Now we're going to put additional hotspot markers out. If we were playing on the veteran or heroic difficulty, we would add 3 more. And on top of that, you add 2 additional hotspots if you're playing with 3 firefighters, and 3 additional hotspots if you're playing with 4 or more. This game can play up to 6. We're playing with 4, so we're going to add 3 more additional hotspots. When I'm rolling to place these, if I roll a location that already has a hotspot marker, then we will just roll again and place it somewhere else. Those 3 additional hotspot markers went at 2-4, 2-8, and 6-5. That one at 6-5 is right next to the hazmat, so that's not great. Next, we will place our firefighters at any space on the outside of the building, and then after that, we will place the fire engine and the ambulance at any space that they can go outside the building. The ambulance can go on the blue rectangles outside the building, and the fire engine can go on the orange. We have our firefighters, ambulance, and fire engine in place. I put the hazmat technician near the bottom entrance. That way they can get in there and deal with that hazmat and the other one in the next room that's on fire. I put the generalist, which is yellow, and the imaging technician, which is red, at the other entrance because I want them to get in there, see if that one right by the door is a person or not. And in the experience game, in order to rescue a victim, you don't just have to bring them outside, you have to bring them to the ambulance. So I decided to park the ambulance right there to start. The fire captain, the white firefighter there at the top of the board, is with the engine. And I placed it there because I'm going to probably swap him out real quick to bring the firefighter out that gets bonuses when operating the cannon, the water cannon on the truck. Because right there in that upper quadrant is where we have a lot of the fire that started already. See if we can start putting that out pretty quick. The rules state that the players collectively decide who goes first. So I rearranged the firefighters and put them in the order. We will activate them from left to right. So first player, second, and so on. I'll introduce each of the specialists and tell you what they can do as we activate each one during the game. I'll also go through how the turn order flows and the actions that each firefighter can perform and how many points it costs them or action points it costs them, and any thoughts or strategy that I have while I'm playing. If you look over here, you can see that I have 6 more hotspot markers that I placed on those little circles on the board. And then further up here, there are 6 more that do not have hotspot markers on them. Those 6 that are on the board on those yellow circles is the limit of how many more hotspots can go out during the game. If I was playing at heroic level, then all 12 markers would be on those spaces. And I'll explain how hotspots and fire and everything works as I play through the game to give you an idea of the mechanics and the rules. We are all set up and ready to go with an experienced game of Flashpoint Fire Rescue. First up will be the white-colored firefighter, the fire captain. You'll see him there at the top of the screen on the fire engine. The fire captain gets 4 action points each turn, also gets 2 free command action points. That means on your turn you may spend action points to move other players. Action points spent this way are at the normal movement cost of the player being moved. And at the bottom it says free command action points cannot be saved. That brings up another rule we haven't discussed yet. If you do not use all of your base action points during your turn, you can save up to 4 to be used on other rounds, and they can be saved over multiple rounds. I don't think the fire captain is much use to us out there on that side of the building with no entrance, so I'm going to go ahead and start off right away with a crew change, which will cost 2 action points of the fire captain. And we're going to bring in the driver operator. The driver operator can fire the deck gun for 2 action points. It also says when you fire the deck gun, you may re-roll either or both dice once each to improve your result. You must accept the second result. So we're going to go ahead and change them out. The driver operator comes in with 4 action points, but you have to subtract the 2 action points that I used to do the crew change. So the driver operator will start with 2 action points now that he's in play. Luckily, to fire the deck gun only costs 2 for the driver operator. Any other firefighter, it costs 4 action points to fire. When you fire the deck gun, you're going to roll both dice to try and get a result in the quadrant adjacent to where the fire engine is parked. So up here in this upper left quadrant is where the gun has to fire. If I roll both dice and a result on either one of them is outside of that upper left quadrant, the rules tell you to flip the die to its opposite side, and that'll put you in the quadrant. So on the red die, we're looking for a 1, 2, or 3. On the black die, we're looking for a 1, 2, 3, or 4. The red die hit a 2, which is in the quadrant. The black die hit a 4, which is also in the quadrant, so we do not need to flip any of the dice. So the 2-4 result will put us inside the bathroom. Another thing to mention is, in order to fire the deck gun, there cannot be a firefighter actively in that quadrant. That's why I wanted the fire captain to go first and swap out with the driver before any other firefighters moved in. That result's going to put a couple sections of fire out for us here in the bathroom. The deck gun is kind of like a reverse explosion. It'll extinguish fire in the target space, and any adjacent spaces orthogonal to it, with the exception of closed doors and walls blocking it. The deck gun is fired, hitting the toilet and causing splashover, eliminating a couple sections of fire. The one directly to its left is blocked by that wall. Now that all of the action points have been used by the driver operator, we'll go on to the advanced fire phase of the turn, and we'll roll for smoke. We get a result of 1, 3. We'll place a smoke token on 1, 3. It's an empty space, so the smoke token will go directly on it. Next, we will resolve any explosions that occurred. In this case, none did. An explosion occurs if the target space for roll for smoke is a space that currently has fire in it already. Next, we'll resolve flashover, and that means any smoke tokens that are next to fire tokens will immediately flash over and burst into flame. Next, we would resolve any hazmat, and that occurs when a hazmat marker occupies the same space as a fire and would cause an explosion. We don't have that currently. Next, we would resolve flare-ups, and that occurs if the target of the advanced fire roll were to land in a space that had a hotspot marker on it. And I'm just noticing that one of my tokens is accidentally flipped over, showing that there is a victim right at there. So I'm going to take that off the board and mix it in with the supply and draw a new one face down. Next, we would resolve any knockdowns, any firefighters that are knocked down, and then finally resolve any lost points of interest or victims if necessary. The final step of the turn is to replace any point of interest markers if there's less than 3 of them out on the board, and there's currently still 3, which would end the driver operator's turn and advance us over to the yellow firefighter, the generalist. The generalist comes with no special abilities or actions, but gets 5 action points every turn. The first one will be to move into the building and see if that token that I replaced is a victim or a false alarm. Luckily for me, it's still a victim token, and right away I'm going to take that victim outside to the ambulance that's parked right outside the door. And to move with a victim, normally, it costs 2 action points. So I spent 1 to come into the building. I'm going to spend 2 more. That's 3 of my 5 to take the victim out of the building. They make it to the ambulance, and I'll put them in the saved section of the board. I still have 2 action points remaining. I'm going to move back into the building to be ready for the next turn. The generalist is available. The generalist is out of action points, which means we'll roll for smoke and get a 1-8 result. A 1-8 will put us in the upper right corner of that master bedroom. We have no explosions. There is no additional flashover, no hazmat, no flare-ups, no knockdowns or lost point of interest tokens. However, we did rescue one, so we need to populate another new token out on the board, and we do that by rolling and placing the token. And we get a 6-6. And that gets us a new token right at a hotspot and some hazmat. That'll end the generalist turn, and we'll move over to the imaging technician. Let's take a look at the imaging technician's card. They get 4 action points every round. They can spend 1 action point to reveal or flip over an unidentified point of interest anywhere on the board. I'm going to have the imaging technician come into the building and with their last action point, flip over one of the tokens. So we'll move 3 spaces first, and then I'm going to choose the new token that just came out next to that piece of hazmat and hotspot, and it's blank, which means we have a false alarm there. We'll go immediately into our advanced fire phase now that the imaging technician has used all of their action points. We got 2-8. It looks like a fire is starting to brew in that master bedroom. Now you notice that the new smoke marker is in the same spot as a hotspot marker. That really doesn't affect anything. The rules state that the hotspot markers have no effect on smoke or fire. And I've gone over the turn order actions a couple of times already, so I'm not going to keep saying them over and over again. I'll just bring up if anything in that order happens. In this case, none of those actions in the advanced fire turn order have been triggered. So we'll move right on to any lost points of interest. This one's a false alarm, so it's going to go away, and we're going to populate the board with a new one. We get a 5-6, and that one is also in the same bedroom with that hazmat. Now we'll move on to the hazmat technician's turn. The hazmat technician has 4 action points, and their special ability is to spend 2 action points to dispose, which means remove hazmat in your space from the game. So we're going to move 2 spaces into the building where that first hazmat marker we're encountering is, and we're going to spend the final 2 action points to remove it from the game. We'll roll to advance the fire and get a 6-3, and it looks like a fire is trying to start right where we came in. We're back to the driver operator. Unfortunately, I have a firefighter. The generalist is still in that quadrant. Now, the quadrants are divided by red dotted lines on the board, and since that firefighter is there, I am unable to fire the deck gun. So what I'm going to do is I can save up to 4 action points. I'm going to save all 4 of them for the driver operator. We'll save 4 action points for the next time around and have 8 action points. Maybe we can fire the gun, drive the vehicle to another location, fire it again. Whatever we need to do, we just have to make sure that no firefighters are in the quadrant we want to fire the deck gun at. We'll roll to advance the fire and get a 6-6 result. Something's brewing in that bedroom where the hazmat and possible victim is at. None of the other situations in the advanced fire turn order are happening, so we'll move on to the generalist, the yellow firefighter. I definitely want to get out of that upper left quadrant so our driver operator can fire the deck gun on his next turn. I'm going to have the generalist move one and then extinguish some fire. To fully extinguish fire costs 2 action points, so I move for 1, extinguish for 2 more, so I've used up 3 and he has 2 left. You can only spend 1 action point when extinguishing a fire, but that just turns it back into smoke. And in this case, that smoke would be right next to fire and it would flash over and ignite right back up, so there's no point in doing that. So I'm going to move 1 more space for my 4th action. Now I don't have enough points left to put that fire out fully, so I'm going to save 1 of my 5 action points for the generalist's next turn. We roll to advance the fire and get a 3-2. Now luckily, there's only 1 damage marker on that wall. If there were 2, that means the wall would be open and that smoke would flash over on the flashover check in the turn order. But right now that's not going to happen. And we've cleared everyone out of that quadrant, which means when it comes back around to the driver operator, we can let that gun rip. We're going to continue to work on this fire. We got the imaging technician, the red firefighter. And just to keep things from flaring up on us, I'm going to go ahead and extinguish that smoke that's just above him there on the board. And that costs 1 action point to extinguish smoke. And then I'm going to move 1 space into the same spot as the generalist, which you're allowed to do. Multiple tokens and firefighters can be in 1 spot. And I'm going to spend my final 2 to put out that fire right in front of me and the generalist. Our advanced fire roll is 1-2. That's not great. 1-2 is going to put us right on top of some fire. The only good thing is it wasn't a hot spot also. So we're going to have an explosion that's going to radiate in all 4 directions orthogonally. Also, when an explosion advances into a space that already has fire in it, it creates a shock wave, and that shock wave will continue in that direction until it encounters something, either an empty space, a wall, a door, etc. In this case, it damaged the wall to the north. The shock wave traveled and damaged the wall to the east. We have our 2nd damage marker on that wall. Luckily, we cleared that smoke token, which would have flipped over to a fire by flashover. And then we had to populate a new fire token to the left of the explosion. Now that wall has 2 damage markers on it and is an open space. Also, this is a good time to talk about damage markers. There's 24 of them in the game. If at any time the 24th marker is put out on the board, emptying the supply available, the building collapses and the game is over. Next, we have the hazmat technician, the green firefighter. I'm going to have them advance a couple of spaces. First, they have to open the door that's in front of them. That costs 1 action point to do that. And then move 2 spaces. And with only 1 action point left, there's no way I can put the fire out completely. And I think it's a little too early to start hacking through walls. What I mean by that is one of the actions that you can take is chop, which takes 2 action points to put a damage marker on a wall. And just like explosions, if you put a 2nd damage marker on a wall, it allows you to walk through it. It creates an opening. But I don't think that's a great idea right now, so we're just going to save that last action point for another round. We roll to advance the fire and get a 4-2, and that'll put a smoke token in the room that we're currently in. We're back around to the driver operator on the fire engine. There's a guest appearance from my dog, if you can hear her in the background. And we're going to go ahead and fire the deck gun and try and get this fire under control in this upper left quadrant. Both numbers are outside the range of that quadrant, so we'll flip the dice and get a 1-3, which is a really good result for us. That's going to put out 3 areas of fire and help get that a little bit more under control. I used 2 of my saved action points, so I still have 2 saved ones left and my 4 base. So I'm going to give it another shot and see if I can put out some more fire in that upper left quadrant. And this time I get a 1-2, which is another excellent result. The space that it hit didn't have any fire on it, but that splash over going in each of the 4 orthogonal directions took care of a couple more open fires, and we almost have that area completely under control. The ambulance currently on the far left of the building. It's going to be hard for us to get the victims that are on this far right side of the building here all the way back out through that door. So I'm going to have the driver operator, who still has their 4 base action points, call the ambulance, which costs 2, and have it come around to the space next to where the fire engine's at. When a vehicle drives, it costs 2 action points, and it can go in either direction to 1 additional side of the building for that 2. If I wanted to take it all the way to the opposite side of the building, that would cost me 4 action points. Any firefighter can call the ambulance on the radio for 2 action points and move it. But the only way that the fire engine can move is if there is a fireman currently on the engine, and they have to ride along with it. Also, firemen and victims can be picked up along the way if they happen to be in a space that the ambulance or engine occupies. If it moves onto a space they're in, they can hitch a ride for free also. I'm going to keep the driver operator on the fire engine for now, in case any more big flare-ups occur, that we can fire that deck gun. And you're probably asking, why did I move the ambulance to that upper area where there's no door exiting? Well, once I get to that upper right quadrant, and if I find a victim, I'm going to use the chop ability to cut a hole in that outside wall to get people in and out quicker. Now there's a risk in this because it is going to use up some of the damage tokens. So I could put myself in a situation where I accelerate the collapse of the building, but you have to take chances. We have to do our advanced fire, and we get a result of 6-1, and that'll get us a smoke token in the kitchen in the bottom left quadrant. We saved those 2 remaining action points and moved on to our generalist, who has 1 saved, so we could do 6. First, we're going to move 1 space, then spend 2 to extinguish that fire, and now we have 3 action points remaining. We need to start working towards these victims, so I'll spend 2 of them to move, and that'll leave us with just 1 action point, and I'll spend the last one to open the door. That way it's open for a firefighter coming up behind me. That's all the generalist's points, and we'll go on to the advanced fire roll and get a result of 3-2. Looks like a new fire is starting to smolder in that entryway. It's the imaging technician's turn, and we're going to check and see which of these points of interest are something we need to worry about. So first, we're going to do the one that's right next to the open door for 1 action point. And we do have a victim there. Since we have a couple of firefighters already advancing into that area, I'll go ahead and have the imaging technician spend 2 more action points and flip the other tokens. We have 1 false alarm and another victim. The imaging tech has 1 action point left, and we're going to go ahead and extinguish that smoke directly behind them. Try and keep this fire under control. Our advanced fire roll is a 3-8. It's a good thing we're heading in that direction because something's really starting to burn in that master bedroom. We will replace this empty false alarm. We'll place a new point of interest token at 5-3, which isn't too bad a roll for us. We have a firefighter right outside that door. Next up, we have our hazmat technician with 4 AP and 1 extra held over, so we got 5 to work with. We're going to move into that room where the hazmat is. 3, and the reason I'm going here instead of the master bedroom is the generalist is going to go in there next and try and take care of that smoldering fire and rescue that victim. I'm going to use my last 2 action points to get on the space with the hazmat. That'll use up all 4 of my base and the 1 extra that I have. I'll take care of that hazmat on the next turn with the hazmat technician, but let's advance the fire. Smoke token in 4-4. That fire we put out is trying to kick back up. We are back to the driver operator up there on the fire engine. And right now there's no really big sections of fire. So maybe it's time to do another crew change. We'll spend the first 2 action points for the driver operator to bring in the rescue specialist. Let's take a quick look at the rescue specialist card. She gets 3 free movement action points, and chop only costs her 1 action point. The rescue specialist pays double action point cost to extinguish fire and smoke. The free movement action points cannot be saved. We swapped out for the rescue specialist. Even though she comes in with only 2 base action points remaining because we had to use the 2 to swap her out, she does get that 3 free movement, which we're going to use right away. And with the remaining 2 action points, I'm going to chop twice to cut a hole in that wall. And now we have an exit to bring those victims out on that side of the building. I decided this wasn't too bad an idea yet because there still are 16 damage markers remaining, which is 2/3 of the supply. So just taking a calculated risk here, and that'll end the rescue specialist turn, and we'll roll to advance the fire and get a 6/6, which is not good. It's not catastrophic, but it's going to start a fire. It's in the same spot as a smoke token, which means it's going to flip over to fire instead of placing a smoke token there. Luckily, there's no other smoke around it for flashover, and we did not land on a hotspot. So not great, but not terrible either. Now that that fire kicked up right next to our victim in hazmat, I'm probably going to use the generalist, whose turn it is now, to come into that room and take care of that. I don't want to wait another couple of turns to get to the hazmat tech. It may be too late by then, because if we roll a 6/6 on advanced fire again, we're going to have an explosion, knock down a firefighter, ignite some hazmat, kill one of the victims, and that's not a good idea for us to take that chance. So we'll move 1 with the generalist, which was easy to do because we opened that door beforehand, leaving 4 action points. We're going to spend 2 to put that fire out. And with our remaining 2 action points, do I want to start taking that victim towards the exit? Yeah, I'm going to do that. In order to move with the victim, it costs 2 action points per movement. So I only had 2 left, so that's going to use up the remaining action points I have. So we'll roll to advance the fire. We'll get a 5/2. Something's definitely trying to kick off in that kitchen. I don't know what that possible victim in there is doing. We need to get over there and find out. It's the imaging technician's turn. We're going to move into that room and see what that token is. It's a false alarm. We have 3 action points left. We're going to spend 2 of them to put the smoke out in either direction, keep things from getting out of control in the kitchen, and we'll save our last action point for a round later on down the line. Well, it's a good thing we did that, because we rolled a 5/2 for our advanced fire, which is going to put a smoke token right back where it was. We'll remove this false alarm, roll for a new point of interest location, and get 4/7. That's not too bad for us. It's right there next to us. That means it's the hazmat technician's turn. The first thing we're going to do is spend 2 action points to dispose of this hazmat, get it out of the game, and start working our way towards the door. And now to use up all 4 of our action points. We're advancing the fire into 4/4. That is directly on the smoke token in the hallway, which is going to cause it to flip to fire. And this, unfortunately, is the first time we've landed on a hotspot token. First, you resolve the initial advanced fire roll, which we have done by flipping the smoke token. And since we rolled and targeted a spot with the advanced fire where a hotspot was at, we have to do the advanced fire roll again. This time we got 2/3. Fire's starting to brew in the living room again. And when you resolve a flare-up, which we just did because we landed in a hot spot with our advanced fire roll, and this can happen multiple times. If we rolled and hit another hot spot, we would do it again and again until we either run out of hot spots or hit a space that doesn't have one of those tokens in it. And whatever your last advanced fire roll is when you do a flare-up, the target of that spot receives one of the set-aside hotspot tokens to create another hotspot on the board. We're back to the rescue specialist, who's going to move into the building for 2 and then spend her final 2 to move closer to the exit we created. Again, when you're moving with a victim, in most cases, it costs 2 action points to move with them each space. There is a specialist that can reduce that, but we don't have any of them out on the board right now. We roll to advance the fire and get 2/7, which is right inside the room we were in. We're back to the yellow firefighter, the generalist, who has 5 AP. We're going to try and get this victim out of the building. We're not going to be able to quite do it this turn. We're going to move 2 spaces with the victim, which is going to cost us 4 action points, leaving us with 1 action point remaining, and I'll extinguish the smoke right next to us to give us a little bit of buffer in case the fire comes our way. We advance the fire and put a smoke token on 2-4. The toilet's smoking. The imaging technician, the red firefighter, is up, and we're going to go ahead and flip that token with our first action point. I had that 1 saved action point, so I still have 4 remaining. I'm going to move into the hallway and put that fire out. That was 1 to move and 2 to extinguish the fire, leaving me with 1 action point. Not a whole lot I can do with that, so I'll save 1 for a later turn. Advance the fire into space 3-7. Potential fire creeping closer to the hazmat. Good thing our hazmat technician is up next. I'm going to spend 2 movement. Oh, I'm not going to quite get there, am I? Because that door is closed. Did I make a mistake and have the... I think I did. I had the generalist move through that door without opening it. I won't know until I go back and edit, though. Well, it's too late to roll all that back. So we'll move into the hallway. Open the door for 1. Move into the room for 1 more. So I can't get rid of the hazmat, so I'll save 1 for a later turn. Roll to advance the fire in space 6-8. We have a fire starting on the pillow in this bedroom. The rescue specialist is going to get this victim out of the building safely to the ambulance. I used 2 of the 3 movement action points to do that, and I'll move back into the building with my 3rd free one, leaving me with 4 remaining, my 4 base. Then I'm going to move to the spot with the hazmat for 2. With 2 left, I'm going to put that fire out because I don't want an explosion to hit this hazmat. Advancing the fire into space 4-2, and the dining room table is starting to smoke. We saved someone, so we need to do a new roll to put another point of interest marker out there, and we get 2-5. Looks like someone was hiding in the bathroom. It's the generalist's turn, our yellow firefighter, and we're going to spend 4 action points to carry this victim out of the building, and then save our last action point for a later turn. First, we advance the fire to space 1-7, and we really need to watch out. This bedroom could explode with a bunch of flare-ups. We also need to put a new point of interest marker out. On to space 6-7, and that's in the same bed. The pillow is starting to smolder, so maybe somebody was smoking in bed. Maybe their vape cartridge battery exploded. Who knows? Don't smoke in bed, boys and girls. Matter of fact, don't smoke at all. The red firefighter's turn, imaging technician. Let's go ahead and spend 1 AP to see who's in bed. We do have a victim, a very sharply dressed victim. And my light just went out. Sorry if the lighting or colors look different now. I had to switch to a different set of lights. We're still on the imaging technician with 3 action points remaining. We already have a bunch of firefighters on that side of the building, so I think I'll stay over here. I did have 1 saved AP, so I actually have 4 action points remaining. So I'll start working on this smoke. I'll put the smoke behind me out. Then move and put the other smoke out in the dining area here, leaving me with 1 action point. And I'll move 1 step closer to the hallway. We're going to advance the fire into 4-3, which ironically is right where I'm standing. The hazmat technician's turn. The green firefighter is going to spend 2 action points to remove our 3rd and final hazmat from the board. You don't have to remove the hazmat. I'm just trying to mitigate any explosions from occurring. I had 1 saved up. I used 1 of my base. I have 3 action points remaining. I'm going to start trying to get some of this smoke under control, or should I go help these victims? I'll try and get the smoke under control and leave the rescue specialists to get to them. 1 AP to remove the smoke, 1 to move, and 1 to remove another smoke. Advance the fire into 1-8, which means it's a good thing I removed couple of those smoke tokens, otherwise we'd have a bigger fire in here to deal with. 1-8 is in that upper right corner, which will flip the targeted token to fire, and then the other 2 smoke tokens adjacent to it will ignite due to flashover. That will take us to our rescue specialist. Use those 3 free movement action points. That's 1. I'm going to open the door with one of my base action points, leaving me with 2 free movement and 3 base AP. So I'm going to move for 1 and 2. I'll use both of my free movement points up. That's going to put me right there by that outer wall with 3 regular action points remaining. I'm going to chop twice to create a hole for us to escape the building through. I'll have to get the ambulance over there. And then I'm going to spend my last one to move back onto the space with the victim. That way I'm ready to move out on my next turn. Fire advances to 3-2. That dining room fire is stubborn. The yellow firefighter, the generalist, is up again. I have 1 saved action point. They have a base of 5, so I have 6 to use. So I'm going to move in for 1, extinguish a fire for 2, move for 1 more, and extinguish a fire, and that will use all 5 of my base and my extra action point. Advance the fire into 3-7, right where the hazmat tech is. Our imaging technician's got some smoke right where they're at, so let's put that out for 1, leaving me with 3. I'll spend another 1 to use their ability to identify the token in the bathroom. We do have a victim in there. It looks like they're hiding in the shower, maybe trying to use the water to protect themselves. Boys and girls, don't do that. Get out of the house. Leaving us with 2 action points remaining. I don't want to abandon this side of the house in case something starts. So I'll move for 1 and put out the smoke in the dining room for my last one. The fire advances into 5-8, right there in the bedroom with me. It's our hazmat technician's turn. They're right on some smoke. We'll put that out for 1, leaving me with 3 action points. So we'll move for 1 and spend our last 2 to extinguish the fire in the master bedroom. Also, I don't think I said it. Once hot spots are on the board, they stay. You can't extinguish them or put them out. The fire advances into 3-1. That dining room fire just won't stop. Our rescue special is ready to go. She's going to use her 3 free movement AP. Well, she's going to use 2 of them to start. And then use the 3rd one and then one of her base AP to get out of the building, leaving me with 3. I think I'll leave the victim there and have the generalist on their turn call the ambulance over to pick them up. I still have 3 AP left. I don't want this fire to start in the bedroom, so I'm going to move back in for 1. Put out the smoke for 1. I'm sorry, put out the smoke for 2 because it's double the cost for the rescue specialist. Instead of doing that, I will go ahead and call the ambulance with my final 2 instead. The fire advances into 5-2, which is a spot that's already smoking. Luckily, it's not fire, it's not a hot spot. The fire in the kitchen ignites. We rescued a victim, so we need to put a new token out. And it's going to go at 1-1. Good thing we didn't move the imaging technician out of that side of the building. We'll have the generalist start working towards the bathroom to save that victim. It cost me all 5 of my action points to get there. Fire advances to 6-8, which means the fire in the bedroom ignites and then flash over. Not a great situation, but again, not the most dire. It's the imaging technician's turn, and we're going to go ahead and spend the first AP to flip that token. And we do have a victim there, a little cat we need to save. I'm going to start working my way over there. I only have 1 action point left. I'm deciding, do I want to put that smoke out or just save it for the next turn? I think I'll save it. Well, that's not good. The fire advanced into 6-8. Which means we're going to have an explosion. The pillow explodes, launching fire straight into our firefighter, knocking them down, damaging 2 walls, and lighting our victim on fire, killing them. We resolved our explosion. No more flashover. We do have a knockdown, and when a firefighter is knocked down, They are moved to where the ambulance is at, and our victim didn't make it, so we have one lost victim, which means we now have to put a new point of interest token out at 6-1. That's right there in the kitchen where some smoke and fire are already occurring, and no one is nearby. We need to get there quick. It's the hazmat technician's turn. They're far away, way over here. We need to start working our way towards the kitchen, so we'll use all 4 of our action points. I changed my mind. I'm going to go into this room because I don't want this room to continue to explode and damage the walls that might collapse the building. And there we go. Just what I said. I've rolled that 3 times, I think, in a row now. So 6-8. We have another explosion on the bed pillow. We have a shockwave that travels up and damages that top wall, almost crumbling the corner of the building and starting to damage the wall connected to another bedroom. Definitely need to get the fire in that room under control. That brings us back to the rescue specialist. They were knocked down, they recovered. We're moving back in the building. The rescue specialist is going to run to the other side of the building. They're not very good at fighting fires. You can run through fire, but it costs 2 action points. That took my 3 free movement. Now I'm going to move 4 more with my base action points. The fire advances into 3-6. The master bedroom is starting to smolder again. The generalist is back up. We got 5 action points. We need to start working our way out of this building with this victim. We moved for 2, spent 1 to extinguish the smoke, and then spent our last 2 of our 5 to move again. Fire advances into 4-7, which is going to flash over on to our hazmat technician, knocking them down and placing them into the ambulance to recover. It's our imaging technician's turn, going to save the kitty. First, we're going to spend 2 action points to put that fire out, then move twice. And we're going to save 1 action point for the next turn. We had 1 already saved, so we only used 4, so we'll save the 5th one, let it roll over to the next round. Fire advances into 3-3, which could potentially block us from getting out the front door, so we need to take care of that smoke. Or just cross our fingers and hope it doesn't ignite. Our hazmat technician is recovered and ready to enter the building again. We'll spend our first 2 action points to extinguish the fire. And I'm not going to move back into the building because I only have 2 action points left, and moving in for 1 means I won't have enough to put a fire out. So I'll save 2 of them for the next turn. Fire advances to 2-2. That space does have a hotspot token on it, which means we have to roll to advance the fire again. 4-7. And this bedroom fire just keeps causing us problems. We're going to get another explosion. We damaged another wall, ignited the entire bedroom now, and since the door was open, the fire spilled into the hallway, also blowing the door off its hinges. And that was our last advanced fire from the flare-up. Since that was the last advanced fire from our flare-up, we're going to add a hotspot there. We're back to the start of the player order with our rescue specialist. Let's see what our current situation is. We have 2 victims identified in the building. We have 1 point of interest that we don't know what it is yet. We've rescued 4. We have a building not too far from collapse. We have 7 damage markers remaining. We have a bedroom that is completely out of control, so maybe it's time to call the fire engine in, see if we can use the deck gun to get that under control. And over here where the imaging technician is, we're starting to see a lot of smoke, so we need to act quickly and efficiently if we want to save enough people and get out before the building collapses. The rescue specialist will move into the kitchen with the 3 free action points of movement. Spend her first action point to move into the space and find a victim. Spend 2 more to move, leaving 1 left that we'll save for a future round. The fire advances into 2-3, which is a pretty big problem for us, causing the living room fire to ignite and flash over to the other areas of smoke. That target was a space with a hotspot, so we're going to advance the fire a second time into 1-7. And since it's our last advanced roll, we will put that hot spot there due to the flare-up. That brings us to the generalist, our yellow firefighter. We need to get out of this building with this victim. We have 5 action points. We're going to almost get out. It costs us 4 to get there. We have 1 left. I'm going to put that smoke out that's right next to me. The fire advances into 1-6, which is right where I'm standing. Our imaging technician is up and trying to rescue this kitty. I have 4 action points and 1 that I saved, so I'm going to move with 2. Carrying my new furry friend, leaving me with 3. This is a tough choice. I do have that fire right next to me. I'm going to put it out for 2 and save 1. I used 4, I had 1 extra, so I'm going to save 1 for the next turn. So I'm hoping if it gets back around to me and no fire hits us, that I can spend 2 to chop that wall right above me and 2 to get out of the building. But that's getting risky because we're down to 7 damage markers. Fire advances to 3-8. Master bedroom's starting to smolder once again. Our hazmat tech is done recovering at the ambulance. We need to get the fire engine over here to try and put this fire out, but it's too far away for the hazmat tech to get it. Maybe we'll have the imaging technician jump on and drive it over here after he rescues that cat. The hazmat technician is going to do his best to keep this fire under control. He's going to spend his 2 that he saved from his last turn to put that first fire out. Move for 1, put another fire out, leaving him with 1 action point remaining, which we will save for a later turn. Fire advances to 6-8. Unbelievable. Another explosion. The explosion ignites the floor right under the hazmat tech again, putting him back into the ambulance. The fire spills outside the building and another damage to the wall. Now we have an opening to the other bedroom. At the end of the turn, any fires that are outside the building get removed. But if a firefighter happened to be standing in that space outside the building, it would knock them down and put them in the ambulance. If a victim was out there, they would burn to death. We are in the kitchen with the rescue specialist who has 1 saved action point. We're going to spend 4 to get out of the building. 2 for each space with that victim with 1 remaining. Not much I can do with it, so I'll save it. Advance the fire into 4-7. We place our smoke token there. It's going to flare up and flip right over. That space does have a hot spot, so we're going to have a flare up and advance the fire again. We just cannot get that bedroom extinguished. Into 5-3. We place our smoke token and flip it because of the flashover and because it was a flare up. And this is our final advance the fire roll on that flare up. We're going to put another hot spot there. We only have 2 left on those yellow circles that we could put out for the rest of the game. Luckily, we're back to the generalist and nothing bad happened to them. We're going to move out of the building with our victim. That costs us 2 action points. We're going to spend 2 to call the ambulance. And then this time, since the hazmat technician is on the ambulance, they're going to ride with it. Almost lost my hazmat technician there. And with the 5th and final action point of the generalist, he's going to put that smoke out. Fire moves to 4-8. Unbelievable, that bedroom is just a nightmare. The explosion damaged the wall to the north enough to open it up, causing a flashover with that smoke that was there. We got fire outside the building, and the fire, due to the shockwave, is just traveling down the hallway. We did manage to get somebody out, so we need a new point of interest token on the board. And by out, I mean out and rescued by the ambulance, because I know the rescue specialist has a token with them outside the building, but they're not rescued until the ambulance gets there. It's the imaging technician's turn. They have 1 saved action point. We're going to spend it to flip that token. And it is a false alarm. We're going to spend 2 to get out of the building with the cat. I know you're saying that it's probably easier to carry a cat out of a building than a person, so why does it still take 2 action points? I have a lot of cats, and if they don't want to be carried, good luck. I'm going to save my final 2 action points because I don't know where this ambulance is going to end up by the time I need to move to get the cat to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and save my final 2 for a later round and bump the camera at the same time. The fire advances to 5-1. The kitchen is almost fully ablaze now. thanks to flashover, all of that smoke has ignited. We did uncover a false alarm, so the new point of interest token will go at 4-6. 4-6 already has fire in it. So in the advanced rules, let me see if I can zoom in. As you can see there in 4-6, each space has an arrow in it. This one has a blue arrow pointing up, which means if you're going to put a point of interest token down and there's fire in that space, you put it instead in the space what the arrow is pointing at. And if that space has fire in it, you just follow the arrows until you get to a space that does not. So following that arrow, our point of interest token will go there in the master bedroom. We've already uncovered 4 false alarms, and there's only 5. So odds are in our favor, I like to say, but the bedroom kind of proves that the odds are not in our favor, the way that thing has just exploded over and over again. I don't know what that bed is made of, but man, is it volatile. Maybe it's one of those mattresses you order in the mail, and when you get it, it's all super dense until you cut the plastic and then it unfurls violently. Maybe it was packed too tight and just the friction caused the whole room to ignite. That's stupid, but I'm going with it. Our hazmat technician is on the ambulance, ready to go. I think what I will do is I will spend all 4 of my hazmat technician's AP. They have 1 left over, but it's going to cost me 4 to move the ambulance all the way over to the opposite side of the building where the rescue specialist is waiting with one of the victims. And the tech is going to ride along with the ambulance. Maybe on their next turn go into that kitchen and try and get that under control. But we're going to rescue our 6th victim. We're only 1 away from meeting what we need to win the game. We also only have 5 damage tokens remaining before the building collapses. I'm going to have the hazmat technician save that 1 remaining action point for a later turn. The fire advances into 6-6. And I'm actually shocked that it didn't land in that bedroom and explode again. We got the ambulance to one of our victims, which means we need to put a new point of interest token out, and it's going to go to 5-5. We're back to the rescue specialist who has 1 additional AP remaining. We're going to spend 2 to move the ambulance to the left side of the building, leaving me with 2 action points for my base and 1 that I saved. And I also have 3 free movement points. So what I'm going to do, so I moved for 3 to get close to the imaging technician with the cat. Use 1 of my regular ones to move onto the space, and then the 2 that I have left to move 1 step closer to the ambulance, and the imaging technician can maybe grab it from there. The fire spreads to 2-3. That's going to cause an explosion, and we're going to have to roll again because that is a hot spot. Luckily, we only had to put 1 damage token out here, leaving with us 4 in our supply, but we still have to roll again and get 3-8, and that may end it for us. That's going to give us another explosion. Again, lucky for us that we only had to place 1 more damage token. And we dropped our next to the last hotspot token on there, and we'll be moving on to the generalist. The generalist can't stand by and do nothing. So with his 5 action points, he's going to move into the burning building and find another victim. That was 3. I have 2 AP left. I will put the fire out in the master bedroom that's next to me. The fire spreads to 5-7. Also a terrible roll. And unfortunately, we had to place our last damage marker, which means the building collapses. And when the building collapses, the game ends immediately. And you place any remaining victims or point of interest markers inside or outside the building on the lost space at the edge of the board. We were so close. All we had to do was get that cat to the ambulance and we would have had our 7th victim and won the game. All those false alarms early on did us in, unfortunately. But even in losing, I really enjoy trying to accomplish this mission in Flashpoint Fire Rescue. I know it's been a long time since I've done a playthrough on my channel that is a physical board game like this, but let's talk about it. First, it's a game that's been out for a long time, and that's something that I'm trying to get to more often. I have so many games on my shelf, a lot less than I used to, that are sitting there unplayed. And I spent so much time in the past going after Kickstarters and the hotness and the cult of the new, and I just grew tired of it. Didn't really play many games for a long time. Now I'm getting back into it and I have a new outlook, and I'm going to work with the games that I already have and not worry about all the new stuff that's coming out. There's plenty of other channels that are doing it and will do it much better than me when it comes to reporting on the latest, greatest thing. I'm going to leave that to them. I'm going to work on games that make me happy and do playthroughs that are fun for me. And if you have any suggestions of games you'd like to see me play, let me know. And if it's in my collection, I'll get it off the shelf and play it. Because I need to play the games in my collection to find out if I like them enough to keep them. I've done a humongous purge and got rid of a lot. And I actually feel much better now that I have a much smaller collection than I used to, filled with things that I want to play instead of just eye candy sitting there in shrink wrap collecting dust, wasted money. This is a game that I like to play a lot. My wife likes playing it. It's a fun cooperative game that can handle up to 6 players. It gets a lot more difficult, I think, at the lower player counts because you can't spread out and cover areas as well. I think 4 is a good player count if you're going to play it solo. I think 6 would be a little too much to manage as a solo game. I've never tried it in person with 6 people. The components are solid. The cardboard tokens are thick, easy to deal with. You're not going to wear them out. The little firemen are actually some pretty cool little miniatures that once I get done with my current commission, I'm going to go ahead and paint them since I'm playing this game more often now that my wife likes it. The damage markers are big acrylic cubes. The art is nothing extraordinary, but it's also not terrible. So it's adequate for what it is. Good rule book, easy to learn from, and it's not that many pages. Also, having 2 versions of the game, a family version and an experienced version, means that you can play this with younger kids without having the different roles and all the other rules that I'm playing in this one. The game also comes with multiple reference cards for turn order and action, so you don't have to keep looking in the rule book. Once you understand the rules and you have those cards, you really don't need to look in the rule book for hardly anything. If you like co-op games, this is definitely a good one that you, again, can play with younger players and adults that are into more advanced board games. You can add these extra elements to make it a little more challenging. I have a couple of expansions for this game. Once I get playing this advanced mode a couple more times, maybe win, I was really close this time, then I'll sprinkle those expansions in and give those a shot and let you know how they go. Again, if there's any games you want to see played, let me know. And if I have them, we'll get it done. If there's anything you'd like to see on Board Game Arena, let me know and I'll get that done. Also, I'm going to set up a Discord server, and if people are interested, I will set up some game times on Board Game Arena and give everyone links to the Discord server, and we can do some live plays that I'll schedule in the future. Anything like that that you're interested in, or you have any other ideas you'd like to see, let me know. This has been a playthrough of Flashpoint Fire Rescue on the Experience game setting. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care, everybody.